Alright, welcome back to part 2 of my adventure platforming slash Metroidvania Mario Maker level design tutorial thingamabobber. In the first part, we talked briefly about the progression, right? The steps that are taken to move through increasing portions of the environment. And really the progression is kind of the heart of a Metroidvania. It is the engine that makes the whole thing run. Because in terms of like the actual platforming gameplay, the actual like dealing with enemies and obstacles and that kind of thing, they're not very different from any other kind of platforming. The thing that sets them apart design-wise is specifically the progression and how it is used in kind of a spread-out fashion through a level to require exploration to open up new things, that sort of thing. So I just want to do a part talking about progressions. I'm going to do a few example progressions. I just want to talk briefly about them in general. You probably want to do... I found that you want to do about... Jesus. I have found, that you want to do about 2 to 4 points per chunk. Assuming you're using checkpoints, which you probably should be using checkpoints. Since we can't stop the timer for whatever reason in levels. You don't really want to punish the player for taking a long time, because by their very nature these levels are supposed to take a long time. These games are supposed to take a long time. Part of the fun is the exploration aspect and getting lost and piecing things together. That's what fans of the genre are looking for. And so punishing them for doing that is just dumb. So use checkpoints. Use your checkpoints strategically to mitigate the time limit issues. If you know they should be able to work through it in nice little chunks like that. And you want probably about 2 to 4 points of progression in the chunk. So what I mean by that is in the first little example, we had you get the mushroom, and then you get the P-switch, and then you get the spiked helmet or whatever, right? So that's 3 things. So already we're looking at putting the first checkpoint just inside that pipe that was blocked by stone bricks, right? Like that'd probably be a good point. And then you'd want, 2 to 4 more things, and then second checkpoint. And then at the end, common thing you might want to look to do is do 1 to 2 things and then a boss. These levels can be kind of long, so putting a boss in to give it a nice satisfying conclusion is probably a good idea when you have the space and concept for one. And you probably don't want too many steps before the boss, because then whenever they die on the boss, they have a bunch of shit to redo. And that's just not fun, usually. So 2 to 4 points per chunk, less if there's a big boss encounter or something in that portion. So that's general notes. I want to look at 3 levels. We're going to look at 2 of mine and 1 from somebody else in this episode. So this is Mechanical Forest. This is one of my somewhat newer designs. We're going to ignore that door, but we're going to come back to it. Just remember it. You can't do anything in there now. And actually, before we even get into the progression, I just want to take another aside real quick to talk about this. This is a thing I like to do all the time in these levels, because we have very limited means to communicate to the player this is a Metroidvania level, right? We have limited means to communicate the genre. Like, what is occurring? Even if you put, like, the term in the title, a lot of people have no idea what the fuck that is. So you can't be like, hey, this is a Metroidvania. They're like, I don't know what that is, man, and I don't understand why I can't go right and win. Like, Kaizo's pretty well known, so you can put Kaizo in your title and people know what's up. You can make a one-screen puzzle, and people can look at it all at once and know what's up. This is a bit different, so this is the thing I like to do, is people like to go right because it's Mario. So directly to the right, it doesn't have to be close. It could be, you can go all the way to the goal and have it like right there. As long as the player is able to keep going to the right until they hit a thing, and have that thing not be a wall, which is important because a lot of times you hit a wall in a level and you just go another direction. But have it be a thing that could be removed if they had something, right? If circumstances were different. So like in this case, if only I had a POW, I could just get through that. But I don't. I don't have it yet. I have to go back. So you set in motion in their mind the possibility that they might maybe realize what's going on in the level. Historically, in my experience, this is not enough to actually get the random, like, drop-in players figuring out what's going on. But I still feel like it's a good, very minor, somewhat subtle point of design. It's just somewhere directly to the right, put a removable barrier. All right. So now we're going to actually talk about what we're here to talk about, which is the progression. So we're going to work through, keep in mind these bricks on this pipe, work through barriers. The whole starting thing is to get the POW. The POW is the first point of our progression, and it's right up here. There's bricks over here you can't get through. And you use these missiles to jump up here, a nice little platforming exercise to spice things up. You get the POW and you work your way back and you kill the Muncher. Right, so there's one step of the progression. The Muncher's area has a pipe that empties out right here, where you get a fire flower. And the fire flower itself is not important. What's important is that now Mario's big. Now he can break bricks. So he can actually break out right here and join these areas. Go back out, and now he can ground pound the blocks on that pipe from earlier, if you recall, outside. Which comes out here, which gets a spiked helmet, which further joins all these rooms. This is not something you certainly need to do. I don't do it very often myself, but it's kind of nice occasionally to just put all your power-ups in one progressively expanding area, so that as people get hit, as they lose shit, as they get lost, because they're gonna do a lot of exploration, they're gonna take damage, right? It makes it slightly nicer on the player. But spiked helmet, you break through here, and that actually takes us to the first checkpoint. So there's a 3-point progression chunk right there. Here we have bombs coming out of this pipe to blow these up. This is not really a step. This is like a half step, if that, right? This is like that traditional Mario solution to a problem, where here's a barrier and here's your solution to the barrier right next to it, just conveniently located. So there's like a half-ish step, kind of, if you even want to include it in the progression. There it is. But that opens up this area. In here, all we're trying to do is get in this door. But we can't quite get it. There is, if you want to cheese the level, there's some really tight precision navigation getting a bomb up here. Just before it explodes, spin off it, and you can't actually get up there. But it's quite difficult. That's neither here nor there, but I felt like mentioning it for some reason. And to do that, we're going to want to hit this platform. And to do that, we're going to want to work all the way around through all the shit. That comes through here. We can't use this pipe yet. We go through the door, which comes out here, and we just do some really basic platforming, working around the level to hit this. Your progression items don't always need to be power-ups. They just need to be power-ups or items. They just need to be things that enable stuff to change, right? So in this case, we have created the change that now there's a platform floating here, so we can get in the door. So that's really like the first step of the progression. Second step, get the propeller. And if you recall the door at the very beginning of the level, it actually comes out here. And you can't get up there without the propeller. Now you can, so you can go in there. And this is actually another thing. This is I'm just throwing in all sorts of asides for whatever reason, but the player presumably might have gone in this room at some point before this, because this is the door at the very beginning of the level, so they probably went in here at some point and saw that the pipe was too high. And here we put the door again. They can see it as they get this. Is a nice little visual reminder to the player that, hey, remember that thing from like 15 minutes ago? Maybe go check that out again. And that actually takes them back, or not back, takes them forward to the checkpoint. So we have a 3-point chunk and then a 2.5-ish chunk, depending on if you include the bombs. Here, these aren't even really progression points, but you use the Koopa to, work through shit, get hit because you're bad at Mario. And same here. Just a nice little wrapping design touch. Not really something that I would technically include in the progression, but it's a way to bring the level as a whole together. And then we have a nice little boss battle here, where you throw some shells in here to unlock the Bowser Jr. and then fight him on these platforms. Go through the door in the level. You have POWs to kill him again, just for good measure. So really no progression there at the end, because the boss battle itself is actually fairly not difficult, but somewhat challenging. So you can expect a lot of player death. You don't want a lot of like backtracking and shit before that, so we just have a few little kicking shells into stuff shenanigans. So there's one fairly bare bones basic, kind of a vanilla progression as an example. These are just examples. That's not where I want to go. Just examples. Hopefully people can take something away from these. The next one I want to look at is not my level. This is Metroid Star Ruins by Crafty Pix. He's an amazing designer. This is one of my favorite Metroidvania levels, and it's actually really interesting. It's really interesting because this is an example of a very minimal progression. And I'm actually just going to play through it, because I don't think it would get the same effect if I just talked about what was going on. So here we have our 0-step progression. That doesn't even really count at the start there. It just doesn't. It just doesn't count, right? It just doesn't count. And there's more stuff there that I'm bypassing. I'm gonna kind of work through this quickly for the sake of time. That was pretty bad. I don't think I needed that for anything though. So we're just doing platforming really poorly. What am I? Oh, I'm on the ice. I was like, why did I not move over when I thought I should have? I was like, you can't see me. I don't have my glasses on. Normally I wear glasses. So I'm playing a little bit worse than usual. We're just going to kind of work our way through. And here we already have a checkpoint. So that's a 0-step progression in a Metroid level, which is pretty intriguing to me. And I actually downloaded this to use it for this, and I was looking at it in the editor to like remind myself. And I didn't actually realize that the first third of the level had no points of progression, because it's just so well done. It's just so well done. Okay, so Now we have a boot, so there's step 1 of our thing. Now we can go down there, but we won't. We're going to go back up here. That's where we came in from the start. So this is a great example of just like a nice, tiny, compact layout that keeps wrapping around itself. Which I think is a big part of the effect. How you can capture a Metroid feel with very little actually going on. So now we have step 2 of our progression, Fire Flower. Work down, and we're already on the second checkpoint. So we go 0, 2, and spoilers, the next part is also only going to have 2. It's a 0, 2, 2 level. But it just works. Wow, that was bad. Again, no glasses. Stop judging. And there we kind of unified our power-up collection areas again, as I was talking about in the last one. It's a nice thing to do. Now we can go down here, now that we have both of these things. We could always go down here. Yeah, we could always go to these places, but because they're all just in this room. But as we get more stuff becomes truly accessible. There, I'm really trying to lose this boot. There we jump out, we get our 1 step for this chunk is getting the winged boot. And then we go back to the, oops. Also, you see how these fire flowers scattered? This is something other designers are very good about, is once a player has a thing, continue giving them that thing. I'm not as kind as that, but that is a good piece of design advice as well, to cut down on player frustration. Is keep giving them a thing once they've already got the thing. Now we can bring the boot all the way back around with the wings to actually the first checkpoint room. Oh, and actually I should have shown, there's a key door up there that we can fly across that gap. Now, I'm actually not going to finish the level just to save time, because it doesn't really do much. But there's a wiggler over there with the key in it. And we can always get there, but we couldn't always get the boot up there. Now that we have wings on a boot, we can fly it up here, kill the guy. Then we have to worm back around to the bridge we just fell down from and go in the key door, and that's the level. But it's a very minimal progression. You know, it's just boot, fire flower, winged boot, key. That's it. With 2 checkpoints and nothing at the beginning. And it works amazingly well. It feels just like a compact Metroidvania game. It's a design marvel. So this is an excellent example of how you can do a very minimalist progression and still capture the feel just by looping the player, just by you saw there were a lot of areas with breakable blocks that opened up more passages to existing areas. The whole level is just very, very well interconnected, and unfolds nicely for having so few elements involved. Alright, so lastly, I don't want to go on too long, but I just want to look real quickly at this. Here we have an example of kind of a meteor heavier progression that does some weird things. So this is Mario's Weeding Business Day 10. It's from my Weeding Business series, which is, on the whole, not really Metroidvania levels, but it takes heavy inspiration from the genre. And this one in particular, I think checks enough boxes to be a Metroidvania. So for the first chunk, what we're trying to do is get up through this, which is blocked, and we have these clown cars to shoot out the blocks to open it up, right? What's interesting is that the 3 dungeons can be done in any order. It's that pipe, and that pipe. And you can go in and do them in any order you please. There's also this door over here that brings you out here where you can get the fire flower, and this door brings you out over here, which is blocked at the moment. So it's kind of a 4-ish point progression because you have the 3 dungeons, and then you need the fire flower to be able to spin through that. But you can kind of do the progression in any order. So however you want to consider that, it doesn't really matter, right? But there's 4-ish things to be done. In any order you choose, more or less. And then you come out over here where we have a more traditional Metroidvania area. You work through to get the spring, and then work back to jump up here with the POW. You can also use your fire flower to kill this guy to unify the 2 main areas of the level. You bring your POW out here to kill this guy from the beginning to get a P-switch to work back here to get the key. So there's a 4-point chunk. That's about as big as you want to do for one thing. And indeed, we go through the key door from back over at the start, and we get our checkpoint right there. I think if you add one more item, people will just tear their eyes out rather than play it. So then we have some nice little platforming there by Loves with vines, and you get the spiked helmet. You break up through, and now these pipes that were scattered around are accessible, which is just like the beginning of the level. Down here there is another one of these like blocked things, and you work through the 3 different dungeons to open them up. And just like before, it's actually a 4-point progression. In this case, the wrinkle is that you want to bring a POW to place here to actually walk into the pipe. And that's basically it. So you have a 4-4-4 progression, with the first and third chunks being highly non-linear. You can do the dungeons in any orders, more or less, and the middle being kind of a traditional firm progression. But that's an example of a very busy Metroidvania progression. So there's 3 different examples. Hopefully you gain something from this. We had, kind of the basic one in Mechanical Forest. We had the very minimalist one in Star Ruins, and then we had this busier one. It really just comes down to designer preference, what sort of level you're looking for. And obviously a shorter progression or a longer progression doesn't make the level longer or shorter. You're going to have like 2 items, but have really long, difficult areas involved that you have to like traverse to get them. And you could have like 6 items, but they're all really close to each other. It's a lot of it comes down to the actual level design, but as a general rule of thumb, you want to do about 2 to 4 chunks, I think. Or not 2 to 4 chunks, 2 to 4 points of progression per chunk. But that's about it. In the next part, we're going to just look at some like doors. Basically, you could use just a bunch of example like passageways that you can fit into progressions for people who lack ideas. And then after that, we're going to get into what goes into actually making challenges and obstacles for these levels. So hopefully you're getting something out of this series, and I hope you'll continue to watch. Thank you.